Today I want to show you how you can build wealth and attain financial independence or security in your 20s or 30s.
Y'all can't see me, we getting rich.
So if you have been following my content for a bit, you will realize I started talking on this topic from my last episode, where I talked about 4 techniques you can adopt in order to implement or achieve financial independence in your 30s or in your 20s. If you actually missed that, I would recommend you go back to watch that one before watching this episode. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the 3 additional steps or techniques you need to implement today if you're serious about attaining financial independence or financial security in your 20s or 30s. Alright, let's get into it. The first technique I'll be talking about today is savings. So as you get older or you advance in your career, you begin to earn much more money than you ever earned before. For instance, you could do summer jobs, you could volunteer, you could have maybe a main job, or even get gifts from people. So all of this typically would increase your income earning potential. A rule of thumb which you need to adopt today is simply don't spend everything you earn. Pay yourself first. I'm going to explain this concept for you to understand better. So when I say pay yourself first, I'm simply saying you should invest in yourself and save your funds from whatever income you get in the month. Now let me personalize this by giving my own personal experience. So I'm very big on paying myself first, which is to invest and save on a monthly basis. However, before I do any of all these things, the first thing I want to do is set out my goals before allocating funds to all of those areas. My saving goals will typically range from short to medium and long term. Now my long-term goals, I try to break them down into achievable small short-term goals. Let me give you a simple illustration. If I plan to save for a home purchase and my down payment is $50,000, now I could simply break down $50,000 into $5,000 over 10 months. And that's simply to say if I'm able to save $5,000 every month, I'm going to be able to achieve my longer term goal of $50,000 at the end of 10 months. Of course, you can actually apply this to any goal that you have by breaking it down into smaller achievable milestones. So the next thing I do after setting my goal or establishing my goal is to document my goals. I have a planner board which I use to write out my goals. I also have an electronic format in my phone or my electronic devices where I set my goals or targets. Now this serves as a reminder to me on a daily basis to keep myself disciplined and on track. So the next thing I typically recommend, which I also apply as well, is to allocate a predefined portion of your income to different areas of your expenditure. For instance, in my case, I allocate 50% to unavoidable expenditures, such as my bill payments, my mortgage payments, and any other bills that comes up at any point in time. I allocate the next 30% to investments, and my next 10% goes into my savings and my emergency funds, and my last 10% goes into my miscellaneous expenditures or discretionary funds, which I can use for any other expenditure that was not planned in my budget initially. Last recommendation under savings is for you to set up an automatic deduction instruction on your bank application to deduct a certain percentage on a periodic basis, and of course deposit those funds into an investment or savings account. Now when you do this, it typically helps you avoid or overcome the temptation to spend those funds in advance. Now I understand that savings is very important, but I also want to recommend that you strike a balance between intensive savings and deprivation. Don't deprive yourself of certain major, or I'll say basic requirements that you need to survive or live on in the name of savings. Yes, you're not aware, there are several savings avenues which I'm just going to discuss as quickly as possible. The first one is that you can save through registered savings accounts. So registered savings accounts are simply vehicles through which you can save and invest in a tax sheltered manner. In other words, all the gains and interest you make on those funds in those accounts would not be taxed during the period or during the year. Now I've noticed a common mistake that a lot of people make, which I would recommend you avoid. It's simply using those registered savings accounts for savings alone. Yes, I understand, as the name implies, it's called a savings account. However, it's recommended that you use it for investment, which is where you get the true value of this account. So if you want to ramp up your returns or fast track your income on this account, your best bet is to go for investment rather than just simply saving those accounts. There are several registered savings accounts depending on the location where you are. Now I'm just going to speak strictly for North America. Now if you're in Canada, there are accounts like the RRSP, there's the TFSA, there's FHSA, there's RESP, and so on. If you live in the US, There is the 401k account, we have the Roth IRA account, we also have the 529 account, and much more. All of these accounts are designed in such a way that it can help you save costs on taxes on the gains you make on the account. So if you need more details about registered savings account, I have a video which I've tagged there which you can refer to at your convenience. So the second avenue through which you can save is what I call the non-registered account or the traditional savings account. So these are simply the conventional savings accounts that your traditional bank offers at the moment. As the name implies, they're traditional and they typically give you the basic interest of about 1% and below, which is really low for your funds. As such, I'm going to recommend you sparingly keep your funds in those accounts as much as you can, because with the current growing inflation, your funds will be eroded in no time. Third avenue through which you can save is what I call the emergency funds. So these are typically funds which you maintain to cater for unplanned occurrences or emergencies as they arise, and it's recommended that you maintain funds of about 3 to 6 months worth of income in an account. Now, considering the fact that this requires you saving cash in a separate account, I would recommend that you keep those funds in a high interest savings account where you can get the best of return. Now, high interest savings accounts can typically give you interest of about 3% to about 6 or more percent, which when compared to a traditional savings account that gives you below 1%, it's a win for you. To help you better through the emergency account setting up, I've attached a video that shows the step-by-step guide on how to set up an emergency account and gives you more details about all your emergency accounts which you can create today. Alright, the second technique I'll be talking about today if you want to attain financial independence or security in your early 20s is what I call investment. So investment is when you spend money with the expectation of generating income or value appreciation. So with the rising inflation, it's no longer enough to save all your funds in a bank account. And that's simply because of its inability to match the continuously rising cost of living that we're experiencing today. As such, based on this fact, you need to make your money work for you so that you don't have to rely on funds in your bank account savings. So if you want to make your money work for you, you need to start investing today. Avoid procrastination, and that way you'll be able to take advantage of the power of compounding interest on all your investments. So my ultimate rule of thumb regarding this is simply don't leave any idle money in your account. So what this simply means is that after you've deducted all your unavoidable expenses, your emergency funds, your savings, ensure that the remaining funds are effectively invested. So there are many ways you can invest today. We have the passive income sources and the active income sources. For the passive income sources, we have things like stocks and ETFs, we have paid online shopping, we have affiliate marketing, intellectual properties, guaranteed investment certificates, and so on. For your active income sources, you have your businesses and your side hustles, which you can do today. Finally on this, I'd recommend that you ensure there is no mismatch between the investment you decide to go for and the length of your investment goal or savings goal. And how do I mean? Don't invest in a long-term growth product such as stocks, bonds, ETFs, if you are looking to get the funds for the short term to meet, say, a target travel or a target event, or you want to buy a house within the next 1 year. Rather, I would recommend you consider shorter term savings like GICs, we have high interest savings account, treasury bills, bonds, and so on. And that's because if you have short-term goals and you invest your funds into long-term investments, then you're exposed to variability. You can lose all your funds or your income, and of course you will be unable to meet those short-term goals. So the last and seventh concept I'll be discussing, which you need to consider today, is debt management. So just to simplify it, debts are funds you borrow and pay interest upon. So at some instances, these interests end up becoming high burden for the holders of those loans or funds. This especially occurs for high interest consumer debts like personal loans, credit cards, and so on. So paying off your debt and becoming completely debt-free is one of the fastest ways to get to financial independence and of course financial security early. If you want to pay your debts faster so you can attain financial security early, here are some steps you need to follow. Number 1, list out all your debts from all sources, including their respective interest rates, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet or even in a sheet of paper. Number 2 is to establish a debt to income ratio you want to target. For instance, if you're saying that you don't want to exceed 30% of your income as your maximum for loans, you can also set that. But ensure that you customize it to what suits you or what is more efficient for you to adapt to. So the third step you need to do is to identify the root cause that led you into each of those debts that you have outlined in that Excel sheet. Now, this might even require you having to put a halt to spending from your credit cards or to expend from any loan facility that has been given to you. The first step is for you to establish a repayment model or method. Now, there are different approaches to paying down your debt. We have the debt avalanche, we have the snowball method, we have the debt consolidation, we even have the balance transfer. The fifth step is for you to use your budgeting app or your budgeting tool to track your payment as it goes on. In other words, use your budget to track all your debt payment information and all the changes that are occurring as time goes on. So the sixth step that can help you pay down your debt even faster is to generate additional income. So when you increase your sources of income, it avails more funds to you to pay down your debt even faster. So it's a very effective approach. So the last or the seventh step which you need to adopt is to ensure you are disciplined and you follow through till the end. So you can actually get an accountability partner that can keep you motivated through the whole phase of paying down your debt, or you can get a personal finance coach, whatever the case may be. All of this can help you towards paying down your debt. So if you need more guidance on debt payment and how you can go about it, I've tagged the video here which you can refer to that's going to help you effectively manage the debt payment and reduce your burden. I have some other tips which you need to note if you're serious about paying down your debt or your credit cards. The first one is that you need to understand how credit works and how you can effectively use it to your advantage. So if you want more details on that, I've also tagged a video on this that can show you how to manage your credit and balance it out so it works for you effectively. Next is for you to work on building and improving your credit scores. If you're new to credit cards overall or you don't own a credit card, you can always ask your parent or guardian to include you on their credit card so your credit score starts to build early. If you already own a credit card, I will also recommend that you closely monitor all the criteria or requirements needed to improve your credit score. So all of those criteria which you need to meet and you need to closely monitor, I've tagged the video here that shows or outlines all of those details clearly. Final thing you need to do is to order your credit report on a periodic basis, maybe on an annual basis, from credit bureaus like Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. If you need more details on how to do this, you can drop a comment below and I'm going to address all of them. Well, I hope you found all these tips very helpful to you and your overall decision making or financial management decisions. Well, I'll conclude by saying it's actually okay if you have made all of these mistakes in the past or if you have not started on your journey. It's never too late to start. So if you start implementing all of these strategies I've mentioned in this video and in the previous one, I can guarantee and assure you that you'll be setting yourself on the path to financial security in your 20s or in your 30s. In other words, setting yourself on the right path as early as possible. Finally, I want you to do me one favor, which is to like and share this video with friends and as many people that will gain a lot of value from this video. And most importantly, subscribe to this channel and I'm going to see you at the next video. Take care and bye.